the Toronto Maple Leafs have put John Klingberg on LTIR. His season's definitely over. Oh, sorry, he's already been on LTIR, right? Like that's I may have confused that a bit, but his season's over. He's about to get hip surgery. It's what can we make sense of that situation, and what could be next for the Toronto Maple Leafs with regards to John Klingberg and their defensive situation?
Yeah, basically the news is he's elected for surgery. It's probably going to happen somewhere around the end of December. Typically hip surgery, 6 months recovery. So even best case scenario, he's hopefully going to be healthy and ready to continue his career starting next season. And we'll see where he is at that point, because he's going to be a free agent this summer. In the meantime, the Leafs have games to play, and, they're down Mark Giordano, who's got a broken finger. Timothy Liljegren's out on their blue line with a high ankle sprain presently. And while the Leafs have put together some points, it's pretty clear when you're using your 7th, 8th, and 9th, or 8th, 9th, and 10th defenseman, at least what the depth chart was entering the year, that you're going to be looking to make moves. And so I think that's where the Leafs are at. Brad Treliving is probably talked to every and any GM that may or may not have a defenseman to move. And I think that's the source of some of the rumors you've seen out there. Doesn't sound at this moment. Obviously anything can change with one phone call or one change of heart in a rival front office, but I don't have any reason to believe that the Leafs are making a trade this second. But they've got a lot of impetus to try to make one here in these next 3 months and improve their blue line. I think it's something what they would have looked to do already, but they also want to be careful about what they're giving up. We've seen the past regime in Toronto, and I don't think this is a criticism of them by any stretch, but give up a lot of assets for rental players. And obviously none of those seasons resulted in the Leafs doing what they wanted to do, lifting the Stanley Cup. And so the downstream effect of that is, I think that Brad Treliving, as he starts his tenure here in Toronto, wants to be careful with what he's giving up, what he's getting back. And that might lead to a longer lag time between now and when he's able to make that trade, because, we saw the Nikita Zadorov deal, but it's not as though there's the spout hasn't been turned on to 10 out of 10 here in terms of player movement just yet.
But it seems like in terms of speculation, it's very much on. Last week we were talking about whether or not Toronto and Calgary make sense. Philadelphia has emerged as a possible trading partner. What about some of these rumored destinations that are out there? What can you say about what's out there? What's true? What's not? It seems like it's always going to be, in our business, of course, there's always going to be speculation.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the two teams in general. Calgary and Philadelphia both have defensemen that are likely going to be moved by March 8th. Very, very likely to be moved by March 8th. And so I think it's natural to tie the teams together. The Leafs did have interest in some kind of Zadorov-Tanev package that didn't come to fruition, largely because of, what it would cost to account for the fact that the Leafs couldn't take on the full salaries or full salary, at least of those players, just straight up in a more traditional hockey trade like we used to have about 25 years ago. But the cap obviously complicates things. Philadelphia is in an interesting spot. As we're recording this today, they're actually in playoff position, but I think that they're realistic at the management and ownership level about where this year is likely headed, that they still probably are, going to be a team we'll view as a seller as the deadline comes. And so, they have pending UFAs like Nick Seeler and Sean Walker, that will come into focus in the trading period. And then you've also got Rasmus Ristolainen, who's, still got 3 years on his contract after this one. But at this point in time, I think Philadelphia is willing to at least entertain eating some of the remaining salary on his contract. And so, I think it would make sense for the Leafs to at least explore to see if there might be a fit there. And I think that's the source of the rumors. I don't know that, I don't think we should be overhyping a Ristolainen to Toronto deal, if I'm being honest. I mean, in the CJ show chat, that seems to be somehow that's become a fixation. I don't know where it's coming from. Like, I always laugh. Like sometimes, Steve or Adam or Jesse, whoever will be in the chat like, hey, is this happening, CJ? And I'll be like, well, okay, where are you getting that? Like, is this from the dark corners of the internet? Is this from your buddy who heard it at his beer league hockey game? Or did Darren Drager report that somewhere? Like, sometimes I don't know where the source of the rumors that get thrown into the chat are. But as best as I can tell, I think that I can't rule out the potential fit there, because Ristolainen on some level ticks some of the boxes I think the Leafs are looking for in a defenseman. But there's also still a long road to travel here. I mean, if you could tell me what everyone's record was going to be in the NHL on February 25th, I could tell you with a little more certainty, the kind of defenseman I think that could be coming to the Leafs. I mean, it's not to say it will necessarily take that long for a trade to materialize, but let's face it, that's when a lot of the action happens. And so, yes, Rasmus Ristolainen is a player whose name is out there a little bit in trade talk. The Leafs are a team that needs a defenseman, but I don't know that we need to read into it any deeper than that, at least at this stage.
What's the rush, everyone? Why does everyone want all these trades to happen now?
I don't know. It's funny. Like you're in the same spot. Like I've always found this so weird. Like everybody wants to know what all the deals are. I'm like, the deadline is in 3 months and 1 day. And we've all done this long enough or seen how the pace usually goes. Like it's usually not until pretty close to that deadline itself that most of the action happens. I mean, last year, actually, there was a fair bit in advance, but even then we're talking 3 weeks in advance, not 3 months in advance. And so, yeah, it's just a funny kind of thing where I think everyone's anxious. Maybe there's a broader topic here, Julian. Maybe part of it is even when you're saying like the NBA's introduced this in-season tournament to sort of spice up the season. Maybe this is partially a response to people just finding the season a little bit monotonous or, the same, looking to switch it up. I don't know where it comes from, but I don't want to be out here saying there's going to be no trades that are happening. We've seen 2 in the last week. There's a minor deal with Eric Robinson going from Columbus to Buffalo on Wednesday. And so, yes, there is some movement in the marketplace, but I mean, we could go team by team through the league and determining who's going to be a true buyer and seller at the deadline is very difficult. I mean, there's 5 or 6 definites on both sides of the equation, but that still leaves 20 teams in the middle. And we just can't say what they're going to be until we get much closer.